Hi, I'm Gary Lowe, just a guy that really likes automation. A short while ago on Reddit, I posted a brief look at my floor plan dashboard that I've been currently working on, which is still heavily a work in progress. And I got a lot of interested people asking about how I created the floor plan or the images for the rooms. And I've already posted a list of the tools I use, which include SketchUp, Paint.net, and Inkscape, um, in which I'll also include in the description of this video with links. But I'm still getting inquiries about it, so I figured the easiest way to answer these questions is to do a short video showing my exact process with screen share. So the TLDR summary is a three-step process. Step one is model the house in SketchUp and export it as a PNG. Bring the PNG image file into an editor like Paint.net or Photoshop to invert the colors. And then step three is to bring that raster image into SketchUp as our background, where we draw all the vector paths on top that HA-floorplan needs to make into actionable elements and link to your entities in Home Assistant. And that's really it. And just a preface before I get into the details, while for many years I've played around with 3D modeling and image editing software, I'm not a graphic designer. And while I'm very familiar with HTML and the DOM and CSS, I'm not a UX designer or a front-end developer. In fact, my profession is a software tester or a QA engineer, where I do a lot of test automation. This is to say, I'm not trying to say that I'm a pro in these image editing tools or that this is the best way to do things. In fact, there's probably way more productive and quicker ways to do what I do. This video is just showing, as a casual user, these are kind of the most minimalistic, basic set of functionalities that I've been able to cobble together into my toolkit to achieve what I'm trying to do. In fact, with some tools, like with Inkscape, I've never even heard of the tool until I started on this little project. So the way I do things is probably a lot of work. There has been a great suggestion by Primo Slate. He even included an example where he took a picture of his room and got ChatGPT image generation to render it in a black and white wireframe style, similar to how I do my floor plan. And he's even graciously provided the prompt that you can use. A couple of other people have suggested tricks to get ChatGPT or other tools to quickly generate the vector paths that are really key for the floor plan, which is the most time-consuming part of the whole process. I'm excited to try those out, but haven't yet. I'm a little bit skeptical that they'll be able to do a good job with some of the fine details that I like to tweak and get right. But it could be promising to make use of those AI tools to get the job done. So in this video, I'm going to be focusing mainly on how to create the floor plan images. If you're curious how to make those images come to life and have information display and have clickable zones, I suggest you check out Tech Tenor's YouTube channel. I believe he's also Exedico, who's one of the developers of the HA-floorplan plugin. He's got a series of videos on how to get started with the plugin, how to do your first floor plan, and a couple of other deep dive videos. It's a great resource to get started. And of course, also check out the HA-floorplan website itself. I'll link to both of those things at this point in the video. On the website, they have examples which are actually a live demo, and you can go and watch them in action, click and play with them, and you can view the YAML configs and the CSS, and you can download the SVGs and all the other assets from the GitHub repository. So, getting started. The first tool I need to use is SketchUp. It is a 3D modeling software that has a couple of different versions available. There is a browser-based web version as well as a desktop version. So to start creating your floor plan in SketchUp, you're going to have to do some legwork. You're going to need to walk around your house with your tape measure, or better yet, a laser measure. This is really useful for the long rooms and the high ceilings. Measure your whole house and start plotting it into SketchUp. It's kind of useful to run SketchUp from a laptop and bring it to the room as you're working on it. So I'll go over some basic tools in SketchUp. Like, you could draw lines and create shapes, polys, and rectangles. If you've never used 3D modeling software before, you're going to have to learn all about faces, edges, and vertexes, or points. In SketchUp, it's really useful to use the tape measure tool. So if you see down here in the bottom right corner there, that is the length of this tape measure I'm drawing. And so you could create a guide point, so 6 feet. And leave a guide point, and then you can draw your rectangle from there, or your other shape. There's a couple of other basic tools that are useful, like pushing and extruding things to create your shape out. But yeah, again, I'm not gonna do a whole tutorial on SketchUp. You're just gonna have to figure out how to start creating your shapes and your objects, and then I guess I will draw the whole rest of the owl here, and you get the house. So I modeled this whole house during COVID lockdowns. I had a lot of time to go over the whole place and create this 3D model, and it's been very useful even before the dashboards, just for renovations and interior designs and that sort of thing. But you can see it's a little bit, you can't really see all the different rooms because there's a lot of obscuring going on. And so that's why I created a version of this, which is kind of a blown out sectional version. So let me show that one. And this is probably familiar to anyone who's seen my Reddit post. So that's how I created that look for my floor plan dashboard. And in SketchUp, we've got different styles. This will open, there we go, to render how this looks. So you've got kind of a blueprint look. There's some sketchy looks as well. Let me go to the full view here. Sketchy edges. So you can kind of get like an artistic, sketchy look. There's a black background look, but then I didn't want the sketchy look, I wanted the more technical look. And that's not really available. So from the default styles, there is a pure wireframe that lets you see through every edge, which is a little bit too cluttered for me. There's an X-ray look, which again, still a little bit too cluttered. And what I ended up with was this, hidden line 3, which shows all the visible edges. Unfortunately, there's no black background version of this, so that's where the next step comes in. But from SketchUp, what I'll do here is you can rotate and pick your camera view. Actually, we could do it from here too. So you go to the download, PNG, to get. We could set the aspect ratio here or later in our photo editing software for image editing software. Even in this view, you can still fine tune the camera angles or the zoom level. You can still use the tools. So Z is a shortcut for zoom in SketchUp, and then that gives you a more granular zoom control. So you can fine tune just before you go and export this as PNG. And so create an image for us that we can work with. So to create the images for the individual rooms, it's actually pretty easy once you have this whole thing, because what we do is we just, let's say we only want to show, we want to have a large view for the basement, so really just select everything else and hide. Hide that. Hide that. And there's probably an easier way. You could, for instance, select all of this, and then under entity info here, you can give this a tag, right? So I can call this basement, and then from the tags you can easily select groups of edges or objects or faces that you want, and then selectively hide those. And then, yeah, same process from here, right? Center it, do the export, and then when you want to see everything again, you have a key here to unhide everything, bring it back, and then you could do all the other rooms. So the next step is paint.net, which is another free tool, but probably people are much more familiar with Photoshop. If you want to use Photoshop, I'm perfectly sure that there's no issue with that. So here we import the image I exported from SketchUp, and here we can do a couple of touch-ups. So we can get rid of the SketchUp logo, draw a filled shape to hide that, and then in my case, I find that some of the round shapes, I need to draw that line again. It doesn't show the edge, it doesn't render it when we export it from, sorry, I want a line tool. Yeah, that's way too dark. Something like that. Right? And then the key thing here in paint.net is we go to the adjustments and we just invert the colors. There we go. Save that. So now we have our black background, white wireframe basic image for the floor plan. So the next step after this is to bring that PNG image file and create an SVG from it. And for that we need the tool called Inkscape. Inkscape is another free tool, and as opposed to paint.net or Photoshop, it's a vector image editing tool as opposed to raster, where you color things by pixels. In vector image editing software, it's all math and points and paths. So Inkscape is a free version of a tool that you can use to create vector images. So from Inkscape we can import the image that we created, and at this point it's in my downloads. There we go. Alright. So there it is. I'm not going to mess around with the canvas, but I'm just going to show. So this is a raster image inside Inkscape, or inside an SVG, but we can draw the vector paths on top of it. So in my case, if I want the lights in my loft to be clickable and editable, then I'll have to draw out that path. I'm doing a very quick rough job here just to illustrate the point. And then you'll have your shape drawn out there, and you could view that shape here. So there's a path object created. It's very important to set the ID. So this is how HA-floorplan will be able to find and interact with this object. And I found two things useful. One is you can go to Outline Overlay to view the image, so you could see the outline of your element without having strokes on it. You can style the element by stroke Let's give it a red stroke color. All right, so that'll highlight it on normal view, but if you don't want to have your SVG saved like that, you actually want it to not have a stroke, and add that in using the plugin, it's very hard to work with it like this, but if you go to the outline overlay, then you can still see the element here, kind of see the lines on top of the floor plan image. And then you can go to the node editing mode, which will let you tweak the shape and refine it. And yeah, that's it. You just got to draw all those things that you want to be able to style in your floor plan, layer them all up here in the SVG editor, and you've got to make use of the layers here. It's very important to make sure that this, the things that you want clickable to be on top of the things that you just want to show a status of some type. So you've got to carefully arrange all your layers, draw out all your objects, ID them, and then bring them into the HA-floorplan plugin to make them active. That's kind of the process. It's not much else to it. So just to give you an idea what my main dashboard SVG looks like, let me open that up here. So here it is with all the layers. Let's show all those objects here. I have my control layer. These are all the clickable objects that are on top. So I've got them separated out by layers. I have a navigation layer for the rooms, and sensor layer underneath everything, which will show my different gradients for temperatures and things like that underneath a clickable light. So for instance, the basement climate, that's the image, or that's the path there, and on top of that you might have the clickable basement light. Light basement. And then some of the other dashboard elements, the indicators like the time and the waste collection indicators, my alerts, the transit indicator, and so on. As you can see, they're also all embedded into the SVG. You can also do it live using the plugin. You can have it inserted at the time of the trigger, but in my case I decided to have them embedded in the SVG, and I use the CSS to display or change the opacity to transparent in order to show or hide them. That's really the whole process. But hopefully this gives everybody an idea of how to do it. I know there were a lot of people saying that they wanted to create a dashboard similar to mine, so hopefully this helps you along your way, and I'm curious to see what people come up with. So thanks.